Narcissist Ensnared, Episode 18. The following morning, they left the lakeside house in complete darkness, the sun yet to rise. Wynne helped Christopher and Amelia into the car, Christopher still asleep. Wynne wished that he could join the small child, for he had barely slept himself. No doubt, that was a consequence of the uncomfortable bed and the adrenaline that had been surging through his body. They drove to Ashleigh's house, where Sarah, the nanny, had just arrived, and she took Christopher, who remained asleep. Wynne declined any breakfast, still feeling groggy, and he waited, sat in the living area, as Ashleigh organised Amelia for school. Not before long, they had dropped Amelia at school, Wynne following in his car. His phone had rung twice with a withheld number, and he declined to answer it. They then drove to his house, where he hoped they would catch up on sleep, or at least that he could do so, before they decided what they would do to fill the afternoon. Ashleigh had apparently slept soundly, curled up next to him, clinging to him like a child. Her demeanour today was a far cry from the hysterical woman that he had found at Julie's house. Wynne was sat on the end of his bed, and was about to remove his shoes when Ashleigh walked in. "My father has been on the phone. He's demanding that I go and see him," she explained. "What, now?" "Yes." "I'm shattered, Ashleigh. I've barely slept. That bed was terrible." "I can't see them on my own. I need you there," she replied. "Can't it wait until this afternoon? I need a few hours' sleep." "No," he was adamant. "Please, I need you." "What does he want to talk about?" "What happened last night." "Why?" "He didn't say. He just said that he needed to speak to me, and it was very important. I think it will be helpful if they meet you as well." "Fair enough." "Thank you. I don't know what I would do without you." 45 minutes later, they pulled up outside a pleasant-looking semi-detached house, which had been Ashleigh's childhood home. Wynne had driven her car down to the market town, which was about 25 minutes from where she now lived. They exited the car and walked along the drive as a bearded man with white-grey hair stepped out of the house's porch. Ashleigh walked past her father and then halted on the threshold of the house as her father moved towards Wynne. He extended his hand to Wynne, and they shook hands. "You must be Ian," her father announced. He seemed agitated. "Yes, I am. Pleased to meet you. Would you mind going?" he said. Wynne hesitated. What did her father mean by that? "Sorry? Would you go and sit in the car?" Wynne looked to Ashleigh for some support. This was not how he envisaged first meeting her parents would be like. He was the good guy in all of this. He did not appreciate the hostility being exhibited towards him. However, Ashleigh just stared at the ground. Wynne did not say anything, unsure of what to do. He thought that he was there to help Ashleigh. "Is there a problem?" asked her father. "No, not at all." "Good. I need to speak to my daughter first," explained the older man. Wynne nodded and turned away and walked back to the car. After about an hour of Wynne sitting and listening to the radio, her father reappeared and opened the passenger door. "Sorry about that. Would you like to come in and have a cup of tea?" he asked. "It's all right. I appreciated you want to talk to your daughter," answered Wynne. "Yes, I'll come in." He was unimpressed with how he had been greeted, but decided there was little to be gained in making an issue of this. He was here for Ashleigh, and he also wanted to make a good impression on her parents. He followed her father into a rear sitting room. Ashleigh was sat on one end of a settee. A white-haired lady, who Ashleigh looked just like, was sat in an armchair at the window, which overlooked the rear garden. She stood up as Wynne entered and shook his hand. He waited to be offered a chair and sat by the fireplace. Ashleigh to his left, her mother to his right, and her father sat opposite him, also on the settee. "Well, we had quite a night," said Mr. Kiem. "Did you get my telephone message?" asked Wynne. "Yes, we did. Thank you for that. We had no idea what was going on. You see, we had tried to speak to Ashleigh, but we could not get her by telephone, so we went to her house. When we went there and found nobody there, we were worried, especially given everything that has been going on. We had no idea where she was." "I told you, Dad, that I'd already told you that I was going to Julie's house." "No, you hadn't," said her father. "I did." "No, you hadn't told us. We would not have been worried if we knew that. We didn't know where you were, and with what has been going on, we feared the worst." Ashleigh stared at the floor, her expression a mixture of indignation and sulkiness. "Peter eventually found where you had gone to, and then when he rang to check you were there, he was met with abuse from this Julie woman," continued Mr. Kiem. "He was the one who was abusive first," said Ashleigh. "That wasn't what he said. He rang us to tell us you were there, but he was also very upset at this Julie person, whoever she is, called him a rapist and said that he raped you recently. He was aghast at this allegation and said it had also been referred to as well in the solicitor's correspondence. He wanted to know why you were telling lies about him. Naturally, concerned at these allegations, we needed to speak to Ashleigh and find out what had happened. She has said that, there was some kind of misunderstanding that arose and that she wasn't raped," explained her father. Wynne looked across to Ashleigh, but she avoided his gaze. "Do you have anything to add about these allegations, Ian?" asked Mr. Kiem. "No, he hasn't," snapped Ashleigh, before Wynne could say anything at all. Wynne remained silent. "Well, it's all very troubling, and we were very worried with Ashleigh disappearing and then these allegations." "Ashleigh has endured a very difficult time, Mr. Kiem," began Wynne. "It is evident that she's been subjected to some terrible behaviour at the hands of Peter." "Derek, please," responded her father. "I don't think Ashleigh, for whatever reason, has told you the full extent of what has happened, and in some ways I am loath to revisit all of that. It is in the past, and Ashleigh has shown the strength and courage to break away from Peter's influence. What we need to do is look forwards," continued Wynne. "We haven't always seen much of Ashleigh and Peter at times," commented Derek. "I see. I'm a recent arrival on the scene, admittedly, but Ashleigh and I care about one another very much, and I'm determined to help her." "That is good to know. I had originally suggested that you stay in the background while they sorted things out," replied Derek. "Ian was doing that, Dad, but Peter keeps doing things so that I cannot cope on my own. You know Ian has lent me money. He's paid for petrol for my car and even had to buy food for us. Peter won't give me any money. He says I earn the same as him," explained Ashleigh. "Well, surely that cannot be right," said Derek. "No, it's not as he should be contributing for the sake of his children. I mean, we were very disappointed when we heard that divorce proceedings had been started. Peter was here all day yesterday, funnily enough. Now we have nothing against him, as we've known him for a long time, and he wanted to put his side of things to us." "What did you let him in for?" demanded Ashleigh. "He wanted to speak to us," answered Derek. "He is the enemy in all of this. He has caused all of this," said Ashleigh. "What I am concerned about is to look after Ashleigh and ensure the process goes forward as smoothly as it possibly can. What we mustn't lose sight of is that there are 2 children in the middle of all of this. They have to be the priority," said Wynne. "Well, yes, I agree with that. I like where Ian is coming from," said Derek. "The divorce proceedings have started, and I've been through that myself. There needs to be a sensible approach to arrangements for the children and also in respect of money. Although Ashleigh has been badly treated, I'm of the view that there's little to be served in going over that again. We need to move forward." "I agree with all of that," said Derek. Just then the telephone rang, and Mrs. Kiem answered. "Yes, she's here now. No, we're just in the middle of talking." "I will make a pot of tea whilst Mary's on the telephone. That'll be our son ringing to find out what's been going on," said Derek, and he rose from the settee. Wynne looked over at Ashleigh, but she continued to stare at the floor, looking as if she wanted to be anywhere but sat in her parents' house. Wynne waited as Mrs. Kiem conversed with her son, explaining the events of the night before, and also providing Ashleigh's explanation. She explained that no rape had taken place, and at the mention of this sentence, Wynne looked towards Ashleigh to see if she reacted in any way. He was not pleased that she was brushing the horrendous event under the carpet. Ashleigh appeared to be in another place, and showed no reaction at all to what her mother was saying. Eventually the call ended, and Derek had handed around mugs of tea for everybody before he sat down again. "We just want to ensure that Amelia and Christopher are looked after. It's evident there are differences of opinion between Peter and Ashleigh, and now you two are together, so that throws a different complexion on it again," said Derek. He turned to his wife. "Was that Robert?" She nodded. "I will call him once we're done here. So, Ian, I understand you used to work together at the bank?" asked Derek. Wynne and Derek then exchanged pleasantries about work, and he talked about his previous experience in engineering. Whilst the two men spoke, the two ladies in the room said nothing. Wynne noticed how quiet Ashleigh's mother had been, and wondered why that was. Ashleigh had always described her mother as a forthright individual who was quite opinionated, but she had let her husband do all of the talking. They finished their drinks, and an appropriate moment arose for them to leave. "I'm sorry about all of this," said Ashleigh, finally speaking. Her mother stood up. "We've seen it all before, replied her mother. Ashleigh and Wynne said farewell and returned to the car. "Are you okay?" asked Wynne. "Yes. Thank you for doing that. They obviously like you." "Do you think so? I'm the other man, remember." "Oh, I can tell. You said the right things in there." "Well, I meant them, that's why. What did your mother mean when she said that she's seen it all before?" "I don't know." "Surely you must have some idea." "No, I've told you before I have a strange relationship with her. She's not very maternal, you see. She works shifts as a nurse, and we were often just left to get on with it. She's the dominant one in the marriage," explained Ashleigh. "Really? It was your father who did all the talking." "Yes, that's because he's a worrier. He always has been. He wants everyone just to get along." "Yes, well, I gained that impression of him when you first told Peter it was over. He was trying to get you to patch things up." "I know, he doesn't like confrontation," confirmed Ashleigh. "Your mother didn't say much at all. I thought that's a bit strange," commented Wynne. "That's because she knows she's not in a position to do so." "I'm sorry? What do you mean by that?" "She had an affair. Well, I know of one. It might be more." "Really? How do you know that?" "I would hear her on the telephone to a man when my father was out." "How old were you?" "Just in my teens." "Blimey, did your dad find out?" "No. She knew that I knew, though, and she was always concerned that I might say something. That's why she won't say anything about me being with you, as she knows that she did similar." "Yes, but you had a good reason to. You've been treated really badly. Your father strikes me as a very pleasant man." "Yes, he is. He's soft, really. I don't know why she did what she did." "Does the fact she had an affair bother you?" "Not really. As I say, we didn't see much of her as children. My grandmother looked after us most of the time. I'm not close to my mother. I'm not that close to my dad, to be honest, but I get on with him better than my mother." "They both seem decent people to me." "That's just an act. Well, from my mother at least. My dad is a decent man. He's even helping Peter pack some of his stuff tomorrow." "Is that when he's coming over?" asked Wynne. "Yes. He's rented somewhere and moves in next week. He's asked to come over and pack all of the stuff tomorrow. My dad said he would give him a hand. I won't be there. I want us to go out for the day. Although I would appreciate today if you gave me a hand shifting all the stuff he's taken with him into the lounge for him to pack. We went through everything and divided it up a little while ago." "Sure, if that helps you." "Thank you. I think I will find it quite cathartic as I move all of his things out of my house. It will represent a new beginning for me. Let's go and get some lunch first. I'm rather hungry. And then we can go to my house. And then you can make love to me before we move all of this stuff." Wynne nodded and started the car engine.